Welcome back. A recent report is claiming the federal government is so concerned about the integrity of the 2024 election that they have asked the FBI to follow and counter what they are dubbing extremists, which happen to be Donald Trump's army of MAGA followers.
But is this just political persecution and the government trying to control free speech? Just that. Let's bring in our panel for today, the host of Frontline and former U.S. Navy SEAL, Carl Higbie, and retired Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Army and the president of the London Center for Policy Research, Tony Shaffer. All right, Tony, I'm going to start with you here. This definitely sounds a bit suspect. Reminds me also of when we heard that the FBI had been targeting Catholics, even though they continue to deny that.
Essentially something called anti-authority extremism, which basically means if you disagree with the government, they can target you. And I think that's what the FBI is now using. And it's very dangerous that they've opened up the aperture to include this. The FBI, by its own account, let me read this, they cannot investigate ideology, but they do and want to investigate civil disruption. It's a fine line there because, let's face it, elections are civilly disruptive, but it's a process. But they're trying to conflate that. So Liz Sherwood Randall, Biden's Homeland Security advisor, is encouraging the FBI to cross that line. And note in the article you referenced, the Newsweek article, it's almost all anonymous sources, just like the Russian collusion narrative. So I think this is aspirational. I think it's a warning and trying to have a chilling effect on the upcoming 2024 election.
Sounds like a very dangerous line they're trying to toe here,
Absolutely.
Carl. This feels like to me something that would happen in a third world country, in a communist country, not one here in the United States. What's your take?
That's what I was thinking when I was reading this. I was like, do we live in America or do we live in China? First off, white supremacy is not the greatest threat to America. It's just not. I don't care how you spin it. The other thing, too, which I think is really we have to take away from this article, is they're using these bogus statistics. They say, well, in 2012 or 2013, we had only 1,900 of these domestic terrorist threats, and now we have 9,000 of them. Well, it's like if you change the definition to what a domestic terrorist is to fit the thing that you want to prosecute, then of course you're going to have more. This is the biggest crock I've ever heard. It's such garbage, and they do this all the time. And for the FBI to do it, I don't know if there's any saving this agency.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It just seems that the Democratic Party constantly changes the wording they use to fit what they want. I think, I don't know, Inflation Reduction Act, for example. There's so many examples. But,
Yeah.
All right, changing gears. Do want to get to this because, of course, we have Carl from the Navy and Tony from the Army, the annual Army-Navy football game, scheduled to be held at Gillette Stadium outside of Boston. But here's the bigger problem besides the rivalry. Nobody who wants to attend this extremely popular game can actually find a hotel to stay in because they're all filled with migrants. I don't know, Tony, it seems that people from other countries who are here illegally are now taking precedence over Americans.
They are, and it's a shame because people can't show up and watch the Army kick the Navy's butt, and it's a shame. And with that said, I actually hosted for another network, not you guys, the coverage one year, and a lot of people showed up, and it was in Philadelphia, and there was no such problem. So the fact that they're moving it to Boston, where this should be amazing, everybody shows up, you're going to have problems because of the unmitigated open border policy that we all know is destroying the very fabric of our nation. And this is something, and I'm sorry, I'm being light here regarding the fact it's Army Navy, but people need to pay attention to this because this is going to only get worse if we don't close the border.
And now it's butting into our way of life, a very joyous event. I worked in Philadelphia for 7 years. I've seen the joy that the event brings before the game got switched up to Boston. All the families coming in and enjoying each other and then sharing in the friendly, maybe sometimes enemy rivalry. But Carl, just how does this make you feel as a vet?
I'm glad you let me get the last word here because to Tony, wishful thinking, I know, but Navy is coming for you. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. That said, to Tony's point, exactly. Look, it's not like this was a surprise. We're doing it in Boston. Like this was planning. And guess what? We've had a border problem for a long time now. So they should have seen this coming. Some logistical coordinator should have gone out and be like, hey, wait a minute. There's no hotel room availability anywhere. Maybe we should move the game. But the government doesn't do that because they never want to admit that they've done something wrong that could possibly impact their talking points. So you know what? I don't feel bad about this, and if nobody are in the stands, guess what? That's their fault, not the people who are going to watch this game's fault.
Yeah, actually, Carl, you're not getting the last word. At least not now. We'll see. But but to your point, Carl, it does remind me also of this takes planning. It wasn't a surprise. Sort of like September 11th, the memorial, Tony, where President Biden, gosh, his schedule's really busy, so he's going to be in Alaska, as opposed to being at one of the very sacred sites of those 9/11 attacks. It just seems like this government, this administration, doesn't really care about America anymore.
No, there's two things. I think for Biden himself, he is a danger to himself and his party. Let's face it, he has a hard time articulating just basic sentences. So they're always worried that he's going to say or do something that gets more attention than it already does. That's why I think they didn't want him at the 9/11 memorial. He would have been on full display in a very public way. Secondly, their heart is not with America. Everything they do, essentially, think about this for a second. I was debating this earlier with some friends. What has Joe Biden done to benefit America? Everything he's done has benefited Ukraine, China, or other nations.
Or Hunter.
And the fact that he won't, or Hunter. And the fact is that people are fed up with it.
All right, gentlemen, I would love to talk more out of time on this. I will say go Navy only because Carl's sitting right next to me.
Yeah. You don't want to mess with Carl. You don't want to mess with Carl.
True story.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on American Agenda. Appreciate it. Okay, we have some breaking news now we're going to move on to. Earlier today, a Russian missile slammed into a cafe and grocery store in northeastern Ukraine, killing at least 51 people as they held a memorial service. Joining us for a report from Kiev, Shelby Wilder.
Well, there's a lot happening here in Ukraine, but I'm going to start overseas, and that's with President Volodymyr Zelensky making a surprise visit to Spain today to attend the European Political Community Summit in Granada, where he's trying to drum up support from Western allies. Zelensky expressed Ukraine's dire need for weapons, and when questioned by reporters regarding the uncertainty over U.S. aid and the removal of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, which would stall legislative approval for funding to Ukraine, President Zelensky said that it was a, quote, difficult election period for the United States and that the U.S. was experiencing a growing political storm with differing opinions. He also said that it was too late to worry about the situation and rather that it was something Ukraine and its partners have to work through. So EU leaders have put on a brave face this week and urged for unity. We heard European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen say that she was confident of the United States enduring support for Ukraine and that it was just a matter of timing that the United States was working on. Otherwise, we have been following the breaking news of a Russian missile strike this afternoon on a village in the Kharkiv region. That's in the northeast of Ukraine. And that has killed at least 51 civilians. I want to correct an earlier report where I said that it was an artillery strike, and that's what the Ukrainians had originally speculated. But now it appears that it was a Russian Iskander ballistic missile that hit a grocery store and cafe in the Kupiansk district. This is one of the deadliest strikes in the war. We know that a 6-year-old child is among the dead, but rescue services are still searching through the debris. And really just the photos and videos coming out of that scene where this attack took place are horrific. We heard President Zelensky commenting on this in Spain today, saying that it was a deliberate attack and yet another Russian war crime. That's the latest otherwise from me, reporting from the Ukrainian capital. Back to you.
Shelby, thank you for that report. Heartbreaking images to see.
Really tough. Yeah.